Hi there, this is Way to Go Nerd. I'm Austin,
I'm Andrew.
and it's Action Week. And for this Comic Wednesday, we're reviewing Batman Year One.
Yeah, Batman Year One is a really interesting story. It takes place between Batman issues 404 and 407. And it really, if you haven't read it, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's a classic, great Batman story, and you should absolutely go out and read it. It's essentially introduction to Batman, to then Detective Gordon, who we'll probably call Commissioner Gordon out of force of habit, but
It just sounds weird not
Right.
saying it.
he was Detective Gordon. And you go over basically the fight against corruption in Gotham City and the formation of these two characters and their friendship.
Yeah, that's what it really is. It's really, an origin story, not just for Batman,
No.
but for Detective / Commissioner Gordon.
He's almost the main character in this book.
Oh, for sure.
You could easily argue that he is.
Yeah, you see him, I think, about 3/4 of the book. It's really his story. And I definitely enjoy the fact that in this book, it's not really like a super villain that they're against. It's against the Falcones, which is, generally, I mean, I guess basically, they're kind of it's more realistic. Frank Miller made a story that's dark and, definitely is a believable story.
Yeah. Frank Miller, again, is working with David Mazzucchelli, who he worked with on his great Daredevil run. And the art style for this book is entrancing. It's at the same time blending like the old school style with some of the new school, then new school style. Uh, very little shading. It's hard colors. It's either all dark or all light. And you've got Falcones as the bad guys. You've got Commissioner Loeb, who has one of those great villain faces. You know from the first moment in the book that you see him, like, this guy's a villain.
Yeah.
You see an introduction to a young Harvey Dent. I believe he was Assistant DA Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
And then you have Selina Kyle, and eventually her transition into Catwoman.
Yeah.
Great book. Interestingly, stopping what would become a longer run with Max Collins on Batman. Immediately after this book, you have the introduction of Jason Todd. So after this book, it gets right back into the swing of things. But it's very much a change to Batman.
It's like
essentially from this point forward.
Yeah, this 4-issue miniseries. It's almost like it's the beginning, but it's almost like this weird, like, own little world of just greatness.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, for me, I read it. It was really my first introduction to Batman in the comics, for me personally, and I was like 7 perhaps when I read it, and which is probably a little bit terrifying because it's definitely a darker story for like a small child to read. But I definitely, it was crazy because I also grew up watching the Tim Burton Batman movies. I was like, all right, it's dark, and I accepted and almost liked the fact that this is a dark character.
Yeah.
It's not a happy-go-lucky superhero.
Yeah.
It's dark. It's real, and you really feel for the characters, especially Commissioner Gordon.
Yes, absolutely. For Commissioner Gordon, it's very much a story of redemption. For Bruce Wayne, it's really the story of when he stopped being Bruce Wayne and became Batman full time. It's a great story, and I really think the cool thing about it is a 4-issue mini, which is kind of rare to see these days. A lot of times, companies will hire guys, and they'll sign on to do major runs of things. This is just 4, tiny little books crammed together, make one great story. And the cool thing about it is it ends at the climax, as if to say, like, this book isn't supposed to be the whole story. This is just the first chapter of what you should see.
It's the first act.
Yeah.
And crazy how we can also tell such a great story in such a little amount of time.
Yeah.
Like this story, with only being 4 issues, is a lot better than a lot of stories that are 12 issues. Like, he just crams it in there. You feel each page is perfect and has its own emotions to it, and just a great read.
You see it in contrast, I would say, with the other Batman books. You could put this book up easily against The Long Halloween or Dark Victory, which on your bookshelf, comparatively much larger books. This
Yeah.
book, takes
Yeah,
up
it's tiny. I mean, you're
the
talking
width of a
like
dime.
nothing. It's very, very thin, but it's great.
Absolutely great story.
If you haven't read it, read it. It's just,
Absolutely. Go to your local comic book shop, pick up a copy. Pick up the loose issues if you can, because the artwork on the cover is just as compelling as the artwork inside and the story inside.
well, this has been Way to Go Nerd. I'm Austin.
I'm Andrew.
And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next week.